Good morning. Gimel Ab, July 21st, 2023, continuing with Tefillat HaHodesh. Now, before I continue with the halakhot, a few of you contacted me privately asking me again about these newer prints and to clarify some points. So as I mentioned, the Tefillat HaHodesh that came out in Israel in the last number of years, with the newest edition just coming out a few months ago, that's set in the Livorno type, is my personal favorite to pray with because of the beautiful typeface as well as the references to the various Pesukim throughout the Tanakh. If I'm looking for the halakhot, I prefer the other older versions because this particular version changed the format of halakhot, and this version follows halakhot more or less as per Shulchan Aruch without bringing in everything from the Hida, and I like to have a more authentic Hida version for various reasons, as we'll see as we progress with Tefillat HaHodesh. Another point. A number of you said, well, you got into Netilat Yadayim, you didn't really talk about Modeh Ani except for the first halakha. So, interesting point about Modeh Ani. We all know Modeh Ani lefanecha melech hay v'kayem, melech hay v'kayem, shehazarta bi nishmati b'hamna, rabba munatecha. Right, we know the words. Keep in mind, Modeh Ani did not appear in Siddurim with this exact text of Sephardic Siddurim until a couple of 100 years ago. Before that, either it wasn't there, or it appears the way it's in Tefillat HaHodesh, which is different. In Tefillat HaHodesh, the wording for Modeh Ani is different, and in fact, it's not one line, it's two lines. Modeh Ani lefanecha, melech rahum v'hanun shehazarta bi nishmati b'hamla rabba emunatecha. Then yehi raso melefanecha sheyeh libi nachon umasur biyadi shelo echos v'shelo achisecha. Again, Hashem's name is not mentioned over here, therefore you can say it obviously when you're still in bed, when you're first arising, before Netilat Yadayim, etc. Now let's go back to the halakhot. We will continue. All right, we're up to halakha tet. Hitil mayim b'nimlach v'hitil pa'am acheret lo yibarech rak pa'am achat. You urinated and you were done, but you weren't completely done. You felt still an urge and you urinated a little bit more. You just say one beracha of Asher Yasar afterwards. Yod. Hitil v'nimlach v'hitil v'nistapek yibarech kol ha'berachot m'berkat Netilat Yadayim ad ve'ani abarechem. No, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Hitil v'nimlach v'hitil v'nistapek im berech lo yibarech. You urinated, and you continue to urinate, and then at that point, you reach the point where you were unsure. Did I not make beracha, not make beracha? Don't make a beracha. When in doubt, we say safek berachot lehakel, do not make a beracha. Yod Aleph. Tekef yibarech kol ha-berachot b'berkat al Netilat Yadayim ad ve'ani barechem. So, Tefillat HaHodesh then quotes the Ari, Ha-Elohi, Rabbeinu Yishak, Luri Ashkenazi, who is basically the head and founder of what we know today as Lurianic Kabbalah, who says, at this point, once you say Netilat Yadayim, after that point, you start from Netilat Yadayim and you go through all the Birkot HaShahar until the end of Birkot HaTorah. Okay, and you say them all together as one unit, which is generally the common practice today. Yod Bet. בזה אחר שלבש כראוי ובעוד שלובש לא יהיה לובש ומברך כי אין לעשות דבר קל בעודו מברך כמו שכתבנו. And you do all this after you already get dressed. Now this is different than what we see in Harambam, who tells you with each item, if you're putting on your belt, you say this beracha, you're putting on a hat, you say this beracha, through the stages of Antilat Yadayim. According to what's written here in Tefillat HaHodesh, and this is the way we all grew up learning, after we get completely dressed, properly dressed, that's when we're making all of Birkot HaShahar as one complete unit together. And that is our practice, that's our minhag. Yod Gimel. Im hu layla yomar vidui v'seder tikun hasot leha'ari zal uzman hasot yod bet sha'ot ahar hasi hayom. Now let's say, as you said before, you wake up at midnight. Obviously that doesn't pertain to most of us anymore, because we go to sleep at midnight or go to sleep after midnight. But if you wake up to get up at midnight, that's it, you're done. Okay, it's telling you right away, if it's still night, say vidui, after the Birkot HaShahar and everything, you say vidui, and say the Tikkun Hasot, which is a special prayer where you sit on the ground and you basically mourn over the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, and we'll get up to it eventually, okay? And how do you calculate when midnight is? Midnight is exactly 12 hours after midday. Midday is calculated, you look at the time from sunrise to sunset, and you split that evenly in half, okay? So we know if a day starts at 6 a.m. and ends at 6 p.m., exactly in half is 12 noon. But our day generally is not that length. There are different times of the day, every day of the year, and you'd calculate midday accordingly, and exactly 12 hours later is midnight. Yodalet. Im eno yachol la'amod ad or haboker, yeshen shinat aray, lo yasir medvushav, shlo yikanes safek lebarech berachot pa'am acheret. Now let's say you got up at midnight, okay, and now you realize you cannot keep yourself awake until morning light. You should try to take small cat naps without taking off your clothing. Do not take off your clothing, don't put your pajamas back on, don't get more comfortable so you can go back to sleep, because if you do all that, then you put yourself into a precarious situation where it's questionable whether you have to re-say all of Birkot HaShahar or not. And you don't want to put yourself into a case of Safek Berachot, or whether there's a doubt to make a beracha or not. You don't want to say Shem Shalom Lashav. You don't want to recite God's name in vain. Okay, you also don't want to not recite it if you need to recite it. So you have to be very careful with that. Halakha Tedvav. Hayub lakum be'ashmoret hu bechol makom ulchol adam. He tells you over here, the Mahzik Beracha of the Hida, there's an obligation to get up early in the morning, the Ashmoret, at dawn. And this is an obligation for all people in all places. Keep it in mind. Final halakha for today, halakha Tedzayin, Yechol lishtot kafe beli sukar ba'ashmoret ve'afilu im he'ir hayom kodem tefillat. Now this is a fairly new halakha at the time. Okay, coffee. Coffee was a new thing. Came into play maybe a couple hundred years earlier than that. And he's telling you now a halakha that we don't have from before, because we know you're not allowed to eat and drink before you pray. The Hida is telling us, as well as numerous other hachamim, and it's what's written in Tefillat HaHodesh, your person can drink coffee without sugar at dawn, and even if it already is past dawn and light is out, okay, if already is daylight out there, and all this prior to tefillah, prior to praying, you're allowed to drink coffee. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen ve'amen. Have a beautiful day and a beautiful Shabbat.